Today we have all the latest NHL trade rumors heading towards the NHL trade deadline. Today we're taking a look at the Canucks, the Leafs, and the Habs, and deals that may be seen here ahead of the deadline. Plus we had all hell break loose in the Ottawa Senators and Toronto Maple Leafs game last night in Ottawa, which looks like it's going to result in a lengthy suspension for Leaf defenseman Morgan Rielly. We'll discuss that situation and what might happen. Plus we also have other news from the Department of NHL Player Safety and several players on waivers. All that and some injury updates coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a lot to cover here today. I want to kick things off with a couple of items from the Department of NHL Player Safety. The Saturday schedule brought all kinds of good NHL action, entertaining games, and some incidents that have caused some chaos, major difference of opinion between fan bases, and some responses here from player safety. So first up, Boston Bruins defenseman Matt Grzcelyk. He's facing a $5,000 fine for, which is the max, by the way, under the CBA that they can do for spearing. So essentially, he speared Washington Capitals forward Max Pacioretty. He got him right where it hurts, right between the legs, right in a very sensitive spot. So Pacioretty went down in a heap of pain. And you know, the weird thing is I don't really know why Grzcelyk did that. Now, of course, I wasn't able to watch that entire game. I only seen some highlights and bits and pieces. So maybe there was something precursor that I missed, but I didn't really see that or figure like, why Grzcelyk just randomly speared Pacioretty right in the nuts. But at the end of the day, he gets a fine for it. It was uncalled for and certainly put his team in a bad spot. The Bruins end up losing the game to the Capitals. That's not the only reason why they lost, of course, but it was an all-around poor effort. But the much bigger situation, though, that kind of get everybody talking. You get the Leafs fan base, the Sens fan base, the media in general weighing in on this. But the Ottawa Senators, Toronto Maple Leafs game on Hockey Night in Canada on Saturday night really ended with a lot of chaos and have a lot of people kind of weighing in here. So essentially, the Senators had a 4-3 lead late in the third period. The Leafs have their goaltender, who was Martin Jones, pulled in the final, I think, minute and a half to 2 minutes, pushing for that tying goal. Well, the Senators were able to, I think it was Pinto, I believe, blocked a pass or a shot, got it out of the zone, got up ahead. Ridley Gregg gets it, skates down into the Toronto net, and just a few feet outside of the crease of the Toronto net, just absolutely rips a slop shot. Instead of just, pushing it into the net gently, he decides he's going to stir some shit here and rip a slop shot. Now, for those who don't know Ridley Gregg, that's the kind of player he is. I mean, he is one of those players who's an up-and-coming pest. That's what I call him. He's a rookie. If you take a look at his rookie stats compared to a lot of the other players, like he's done very well for himself. Offensively, he's typically playing on a third-line role for the Sens early in the campaign when Norris was out, and before, of course, when Pinto was also suspended. He did play a top-six role, which Gregg did fairly well early on. I think on a long-term basis, it was a little much for him for a long stretch, but he did fill in nicely early on, and he's going to be a real good player for the Sens. They certainly really like this kid, and like I said, he's becoming one of those players that's just an agitator. He knows how to get under your skin. He's a pest, and he brought some much-needed life and emotion back into this Battle of Ontario, which has been kind of stale for the last few years. Obviously, the teams are not necessarily been running in different spots here, different directions for quite some time. I mean, the Senators entered a rebuild. What is it now, going on 4 or 5 years? I guess it would have been 2017 that things kind of started. So, we've gone through about 5 years of rebuilding in Ottawa, whereas the Leafs started a rebuild well ahead of that, tore things down right to the bone. And then, of course, they've been a playoff team for that last stretch of time, 5, 6, 7 years here. So ultimately, like I said, they're just in different spots, and there hasn't been a ton of emotion in that rivalry, although the Leafs have had a hard time. The Sens have won 3 out of 4 this year, and certainly, given the Leafs a hard go in the last several years, even when they were rebuilding. It's just one of those games they always get up for and always just give them a hard time. But obviously, the Leafs were not fond of this last second slap shot by Ridley Gregg. I understand that technically he did nothing wrong by the rule book. I guess the players and former players are saying, which I do understand, there's a little bit of an unwritten code, so to speak, on how to kind of behave and how to, handle yourself out there, so to speak. And players just feel it was unnecessary. But at the same time, like I said, you got to remember, they're in Ottawa. Okay, the Ottawa building is probably 50 to 70% full of Leaf fans chanting "Go Leafs, go" the entire game, which I'm sure gets on their nerves. Ridley Gregg, the shift before this happened, took a high stick from Jake McCabe in front of the Leaf net, uncalled. He was not happy with that. And like I said, he is definitely the type of player. I call him a skilled shit disturber. That's just what he is. But he's like, you love him when he's on your team. You hate him when he's not. That's just who he is. And did he need to do that? No, he didn't. It probably was uncalled for. But I also think the reaction from Leaf defenseman Morgan Rielly was way, way over the top. So essentially, Rielly was the only player kind of coming back to try to stop Gregg, but he was way behind, had no chance. So he's, probably 10 feet away or something like that. So after Gregg puts the puck in the net with the slap shot, comes around to the boards, and then Rielly comes at him and ends up cross-checking him right in the head. Now, there's some say, and I've seen different angles. I haven't seen a definitive clear angle where it hits the shoulder and rides up, but I know some people have said that that's what it looks like. But either way, it's bad. It's a real bad reaction. I know from an older, long-time hockey fan, I had, took me back to Dale Hunter versus Pierre Turgeon. There's obviously look at some incidents this year, not necessarily after a goal, but like the Rasmus Anderson suspension earlier this season, as well as David Perron, which also happened against Ottawa. When Larkin got hurt, the Red Wings obviously blamed Joseph, and then Perron didn't even see what happened, ended up attacking Erdem Zub for no apparent reason. And he got, Perron got, I believe it was 6 games, if I remember correctly. So Morgan Rielly's been offered an in-person hearing. So I know the announcement from player safety took a while to come out, and reporters were saying that they were having a tough time deciding if it was going to be a phone hearing or an in-person hearing. Now, of course, if it's a phone hearing, it's maximum 5 games. If it's an in-person hearing, it can be 6+. So obviously, the fact that it's been offered in person, it's not good. There certainly looks like they're possibly kind of throwing the book at him here. Morgan Rielly is not known as a dirty player. This is out of character for him. A lot of media have weighed in saying that they are quite content with what Rielly did. And you know what? The fact that he responded, the fact that he showed emotion, and the fact that he felt the need to stick up for his team, I will commend him for that. The Leafs are often guilty of not doing that or coming across as being very soft. They do have that reputation. They've heard it a lot. And the fact that he actually responded, probably something that's much needed in that team, in that organization. But again, this is a case of responding and going way, way too far. I've seen a lot of people say, well, if there would have been a reversal and the Sens would have been the ones who got the slap shot goal scored on them, Brady Tkachuk would have went nuts and would have done the same thing. I disagree. I think Brady Tkachuk would have went after the player who did it, would have dropped his gloves and challenged him to a fight like a man, not cross-check him in the head, which is to a player who's not prepared to defend himself. I really don't think that's what Brady would have done at all. So as much as Sportsnet, who certainly very much biased towards the Leafs in my opinion, they all seem to be very okay with the fact what Rielly did, not even really acknowledging the fact that this is a cross-check to the head. Like I said, I'm okay with the fact he responded. I don't think Ridley Gregg did that with, I'm sure he knew that there was going to be a response, but it was too far. Challenge him to a fight, shove him, push him, throw some punches, do it more appropriately. I don't know. Don't target the head. That needs to stop. So clearly player safety is not pleased here. And like I said, it's going to be an in-person hearing, which is going to be held on Tuesday. So the Leafs' next game is Tuesday night. I suspect with the hearing being held Tuesday afternoon that we will get the verdict from Peros and player safety before the game Tuesday night. I think it's as good as done here that he's definitely not going to be playing in that game. And because it's an in-person hearing, I'm going to suggest that it's probably at least 5 games. And I'm thinking it's likely going to be more considering they offered in person. Perron got 6. I wouldn't be surprised if it's the same. Could it be more? I guess maybe, but I don't know. I'm going to say probably 6 or 7 is the likely where this is going based on what we know so far. So we will see. I know there's going to be a divide here. I know Sens fans are going to want the book thrown at him. I know Leaf fans are going to defend him till there's no tomorrow and think he did nothing wrong and shouldn't be suspended at all or very little. And there's going to be a major difference of opinion here, but I want you to leave your comments down below and let me know what you think, because there's obviously, like I said, a major divide. And we'll talk about this again on Tuesday once we have a verdict. From the NHL waiver wire today, we've got a couple of players on waivers, including the New Jersey Devils' Max Willman and the Winnipeg Jets forward Dominic Toninato. They also have a situation where the Detroit Red Wings are terminating a contract mutually agreed upon, of course, with Nolan Steve. So he's on unconditional waivers for the purpose of having that contract terminated. Steve's likely has something lined up elsewhere where he's going to get what he feels to be more of an opportunity. So we'll see what happens. We'll get word on the waivers players at 2 o'clock Eastern time tomorrow and see if they've been picked up or claimed or if they'll be reassigned. A couple of injury updates here in Montreal. It was not a good day for them today. They also updated Raphael Harvey-Pinard, who got hurt in their previous game. And we now know for sure he's going to be out 4 to 6 weeks. So that's going to put him probably to about the middle of March or so. And we also seen Jordan Harris be injured today, which is he's considered day-to-day for right now. And Caden Gooley was injured as well. He's still being evaluated. We do not have a timeline quite yet on him. So the Habs just can't catch a break. It's crazy how many injuries they've had and how many games lost they've had in the past few years. It's absolutely insane, the amount of bad luck that team has suffered in that sense. Now, on Saturday headlines with Elliot Friedman on Hockey Night in Canada, we did also get some other updates. Several of which we talked about yesterday. One I chose to wait and talk about here today is the Arizona Coyotes update. Of course, we talked about back earlier this week about the possibility that we might be getting a major piece of news on the future of the Coyotes as early as Monday, Tuesday this week. I know early this past week there was a lot of speculation that once we were past the Super Bowl, which is going on tonight as I record this video, that we likely would be getting clarity on the future of the Coyotes, and not the owner of the Coyotes, Alex Muriel, was supposed to be updating their employees on what's going on as well. I mean, there was a lot of NHL reporters that were kind of getting to the point here that they felt like it was time was running out on getting an arena situation figured out, and that the pressure was on from the NHL and the Board of Governors to get something done, and that we might even get word soon of a relocation, possibly to Utah or somewhere else if things are not sorted out here very quickly. Now, according to Friedman on the Saturday Headlines segment, he says that we may not get clarity quite as quickly as we were thinking. I know there was some more updates from Craig Morgan, who covers the Coyotes closely and locally in Phoenix area, and Friedman said that essentially that they are working on maybe getting a piece of land in northern Phoenix, which is apparently a good location. I don't know the landscape as well as the locals would, but from what we hear, it would be a good spot, and would be expected that it would probably be their best chance to get the fan base to attend the games more regularly, get attendance numbers up. If it's going to happen, that's probably their best shot. And at the end of the day, that purchase of land goes through an auction, it goes through government, and it's a little bit complicated, which is why a lot of NHL insiders were saying they didn't think it would come together quick enough. But Craig Morgan is saying essentially just because it's going through as an auction process, that a lot of times these bidders are the only ones. A lot of times when this happens, like any other parties that are remotely interested would know that there's a big company that's kind of be coming through and bidding, and they're probably going to have a lot of competition, so they kind of back away and it ends up in a one bidder situation. It doesn't mean for sure that would be the case, but it very well could be, and that it could be within a 3-month span, have the land purchased, and they could begin prep for the site for construction. Now, it still would take a long time. We're probably still looking at about a good 3 years before they would be able to open an arena, and that's assuming there's no other complications with the purchase of the land and prep of the land, etc., everything that needs to go into it. But it sounds like the Coyotes might have a little bit more time here before things kind of become a little bit more official one way or another. So that clarity we were hoping for this week may not come. So we'll see how long this drags out. With other big news as well regarding a potential free agent out of the KHL in Russia. Of course, the Toronto Maple Leafs are linked to Maxim Siplikov, who's been playing in the KHL for 7 years. Kind of been slowly building up his profile of being a solid scoring winger. This year he's exploded for 30+ goals. His agent has confirmed that they have had extensive meetings with the Toronto Maple Leafs via Zoom, and that there is a significant interest there to sign him for possibly as early as next season. He's 6'2", 190-pound winger. There is some belief he might be able to play center, but probably going to be a winger in the NHL if he makes the jump, which is expected here. He's described as being a big, strong, athletic winger with a really great shot. Some believe he might be a prototypical third-line player to kind of complement the Leafs' bottom six, which clearly has been an issue this year, and somebody who they might be able to pick up, obviously, without giving up assets. I mean, obviously, it would likely be a short-term contract in the beginning, kind of like a tryout, kind of like what we saw with Kuzmenko in Vancouver, and then if things go well, which we kind of seen things go really well and then fall down and then get moved, and but overall still a productive player. He could be on the Leafs roster next year. We know that they need to figure some things out for changing up their mix from their supporting cast, and he might be a guy that comes in, like I said, on a free contract, not free, but like free as in not giving up assets to get him, to see if he'll work out or not. So keep an eye on that name, Maxim Siplikov. So onto the trade rumor section. Let's stay with the Leafs since we're talking about them next year. Obviously, there's still lots of talk about what they're willing to do and not do. The fourthperiod.com and Dave Pagnotta has indicated, again, their reluctance to move young, recently drafted top prospects like Fraser Minton and Easton Cowan, but they do seem to be dangling youngster Nick Robertson out there for deadline moves, amongst all the speculation that he's hearing around the league and conversations that they're having, which is believed to be mostly around adding some blue liners. Obviously, they want to improve their D if they can, and obviously their bottom six and their supporting cast, secondary scoring has been an issue in Toronto. They may or may not be able to make as many moves as they want, but those are the types of things that they're looking to improve upon heading towards the playoffs. At this rate, the Leafs are not even guaranteed a spot, to be completely honest. That game they lost last night to the Sens certainly was one that they would have liked to have back. They're very tight in the standings, currently in a wild card spot, neck and neck with the Detroit Red Wings. A couple other teams like the Islanders, Penguins are right on their heels. If they did have an extended losing streak, and they're going to be without their top defenseman now for an extended time by the looks of things, they could fall out. It's not, it's tight, way tighter than we've seen in recent years for Toronto. So clearly, improving the blue line and the secondary depth would be huge. But again, without giving up guys like Minton and Cowan, it's going to be challenging. It's believed they'll probably move their first round pick, and maybe a guy like Nick Robertson would be the main pieces that they're looking to move. But they may have to move some players off the roster because of cap reasons as well. Guys that are believed to be out there in conversation. Hard to say what other teams think about them now, so it's not really a given that they're going to get moved. But Yarncrow, Kampf, and Reeves' names have been out there as players that the Leafs are, I think, at least comfortable including, should they find something that works out. So we'll see what the Leafs do, but for right now, they need to worry about securing a spot before they spend a bunch of assets, in my opinion, and that's going to be the focus here for the next few weeks. But like I said, it will be a challenge bigger than they would have thought without defenseman Morgan Rielly being in there for a while. We'll see how many games he gets. In Vancouver, there's also word that the Canucks and Flyers have had extensive conversations around the Flyers defense core that's available to be moved, which is kind of led by Rasmus Ristolainen. The Canucks are along with the Leafs. That's another player the Leafs have checked in on and is believed to have interest. I mean, there's a lot of D that the Leafs are looking at. Again, so just like Vancouver, they're looking at a lot of the same players, whether it's Tanev, Ristolainen, Walker, etc. Like they're all kind of gathering some, different levels of interest in each player. But the Canucks have had extensive conversations on two different varieties on Ristolainen, Walker, and Sealer. So we'll see what happens. Obviously, the Flyers are a team that would be looking for possibly a first-round pick, though. I mean, on Walker, it's kind of believed that that's what they're looking for. They may not get it. It's hard to say, but if somebody does offer one up, that's probably where he'll end up going. Ristolainen is going to require salary retention. So for that, it's going to drive up the the amount coming back, the return. So I don't know. I think the Canucks, as much as they clearly have interest in some of these Flyers defensemen, I think they may have a difficult time meeting the asking price. So we will see. But they definitely want to add on the blue line for sure. They may end up doing something that's kind of a little bit more of a depth move and not somebody who's necessarily at the top of the list amongst the top defensemen that are available. In Montreal, a couple of players that we're still watching closely, as well as Jake Allen and Muriel Armia. Jake had a tough day today, gave up 7 goals to his former team in the St. Louis Blues. And there's some saying now, because of the limited amount of action that the goalies in Montreal have had, because of the 3-headed goalie system, Jake's had a couple of rough outings as of late. He still has another year in his contract, a sizable contract at that for somebody who's not a starter. Is that a tradable contract still? As much as they probably would prefer to move him compared to the other goalies, they may have a tough time. I mean, these recent performances, and it's not all on him, clearly. It's a team game for sure, but not doing himself any favors. But, I really think it's Jake's preference to not be traded anyway, but at the same time, it's Montreal's preference to free up some space and time for their other goalies to play and also free up some salary cap space. So things are not trending in a good direction with that kind of performance. And in Muriel Armia's case, there is believed to be some interest. He's got 8 goals in the season now after going through waivers early in the campaign and getting cut early on from the team. But after getting called up, he's been, I wouldn't say he's been really good or anything, but he's been a lot better, a little bit more efficient. But it's believed that teams are only interested if they can get salary retention, upwards of 50% on that. But he does have another year, again, like Jake Allen. Montreal might be in tough to really move these veteran players. I'm not sure how content they're going to be to hang on to them if they need be. Clearly, they want to make some improvements. I think it's already apparent this year that it's not a year to take a big step forward. But, I'm sure they'd like to get some more wins under their belt and kind of make sure that these young players have a chance to experience winning as well, and not just, like some organizations we've seen, which does develop and weigh on you as a culture of losing. You don't want that to drag on too long as these players are developing. So as much as these guys are, quality veteran players, well-liked by their teammates, they do have some value, but considering they have more term on their contract and, need salary retention just to even consider it, it's going to be tough. It absolutely will be tough. Like Jake Allen's value was higher probably 4, 5, 6 weeks ago. They didn't pull the trigger on a deal. And now the last few performances, because they're seldom and far in between, are just not helping the case at all. And he's only probably going to get to play a couple more games before the deadline with the 3-goalie system, trying to get everybody some playing time. So it's not ideal at all. And I really don't see a situation where Montreal trades Montembeault or Primo. You never know, but I doubt it. So we'll see where this goes. The Habs might be in tough with some of these veterans and might not be able to move them after all, but we'll have to see what Ken Hughes pulls off. Let me know your thoughts on today's news and rumors down in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the latest news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.